responsible as scientists for creating comfort and welfare to the people. As far as I could see on your CV, you are doing fantastically for recruiting outstanding talents and promoting and designing the future for all of us. Thank you very much. And the floor is for our organizer that will introduce your CV, and we'll start all this. And sorry for this delay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Martin, Rodrigo Martin. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, in which time zone you are. Dear colleague, guests, members of the Academy, researchers, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm delighted to welcome you in the seminar series of 2026 of European Academy of Science, which is our opportunity to engage with the global leader of science and society. The webinar is being recorded and also live on YouTube and will be available afterwards if you want to consult. My name is Shahzada. I'm a professor at Material Science at University of Barcelona. And for the next 1 hour, I'm joined by Professor Ashok Swan. And I have a great pleasure of introducing him today. He is contrary to his name. His name's mean, Ashok means without sorrow, without grief. It is possible that he can be in his personal life without sorrow, but in public life, he fights a lot for the betterment of our society in both print and electronic media, and nowadays in social media. He's a professor of head of the Department of Peace and Conflict Research. He received his master's degree from University of Delhi and his PhD in 1991 from the Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Swan was an associate senior fellow at the Stockholm Peace Research Institute Climate Research Program. He was the founding director of Uppsala University Center for Sustainable Development from 2008 to 2012 and has been McCarthy University of Chicago. Swan has held visiting fellowship at UN and also a visiting professorship at Stanford, McGill, British Columbia, Maryland, and Tufts University and University of Vienna. So the list is long, but to be very, very concise. Currently, he is the head of department and the Department of Peace and Conflict Research. He is a UNESCO chair on International Water Cooperation and direct the Research School of International Water Cooperation at Uppsala. And he's also the founding direct editor of Energy and Security Journal, Environment and Security Journals. Today, Dr. Swan will enlighten us and share his knowledge with his talk, Peace and Security in a Multipolar World, the new risk and new responsibility for science and society. Today, we are living in a multipolar world, and the topic is more important for our civilization and to European Academy of Science. The synergistic effort of peace achieved through the impact in science is also more important than ever. We have to double down our approach and stand for science. So, Professor Swan, thank you for accepting our invitation, and to all of the members who have joined today. And with this, I pass the floor to Professor Swan.
Thank you, Professor Rodrigo. Thank you, Professor Shahzada, for kind introduction. I'm happy and honored to speak to the European Academy of Sciences and a topic which is, I will try to not to use much jargons, but at least try to make it as easily understood. But I will not use the slides. So I will speak as it is. I think what we in the world, as you all know, there is a multiple global crisis unfolding. The wars, we are seeing wars being fought everywhere. Climate change, which has been a major issue for a long time and is becoming more and more problematic. The health issue, pandemic, we just came out of a pandemic and we are always, there is a possibility of another anytime. Then the democratic decline, which the world is witnessing for at least for almost a couple of decades. But we thought that probably this democratic decline is taking place only in the global south. But now we see that that's happening in our part of the world here. So when we bring them together, and these are things happening simultaneously, and these things by happening simultaneously also interacting among themselves, and that's amplifying each other. So what in our terminology, people call it polycrisis, which is happening in the world. So in this context, I think what we would like to discuss today is that can peace be achieved and sustained in this period, at this time of this crisis? let's see how the world has moved. As we all know that when the Cold War ended in Europe, the world moved to a single power, or what you call the hyper superpower, US-led order. Recently, you might have seen this speech which of the Canadian Prime Minister made a big splash all over, that the saying about how the international rule-based international order has been under threat. So there was no such rule-based international order. It was a rule-based international order, but not for everyone. Rules are supposed to be, the laws are supposed to be for everyone. But unfortunately, these rules didn't apply to the major power, which is the United States, and also to some of its close allies. And that has been now open to everybody, because we are seeing that when the Europe is also, its close allies are also under threat. But then, while this was happening, while there was there was a rise of US took place, the China simultaneously, we saw in the last 20 years, China emerging in a very, very big manner. And I think China is competing United States, not only economically. Economically, it is a much larger way, militarily as well. While China has been either surpassed or almost surpassed economically United States, power-wise, it has also militarily in a very, very comfortable position right now. While this is going on, where the United States was actually having an upper hand, it had the two things. One, it had a cultural value which was considered superior. I'm not talking about the American, but the democratic values. A society which was much more democratic speech, there was a continuity of an order. At the same time, it has also very strong allies, a much more powerful ally than China had. But that has changed in recent years. So I think which is seeing that China is emerging as a very, very powerful competitor, if it hasn't been the number one yet, but it is almost threatening that position anytime. While this is happening in US and China, then we are also seeing that the former superpower, which is Soviet Union, became Russia, which thinks part of that process, is trying to regain some of its old glory, not probably globally, but at least in some regional sense. So it is engaged in a direct war in the last 4 years, and it somehow try to maintain its relationship with China. So it's a close ally of China, or closely or dependent in many ways on China, particularly after the Ukraine war. Besides these three actors, then we see India sometimes, we see Brazil sometimes, we see South Africa sometimes, we see Indonesia sometimes. They are trying to gain that regional influence. And there have been all these, because they have their other weaknesses. I don't have the time to get into this, but I think, as you all know, that they also have an idea of even not being a superpower, but being great power in their regions. They saw some kind of spark sometime, but they usually then go back to the either siding with one of these two major power centers which are coming up. Though the most interesting things that happened, which was surprising a bit, that the Iran has emerged as a major actor in the last few weeks, which was because if you remember 20 years back when particularly when the Iraq crisis was taking place, that time American president had called it an axis of evil. And there was the idea that there is some kind of Iranian regime, the way it has been the Western intervention in that part of the world. But now in the last 5 weeks of war, the way Iran got affected quite badly, but also the way it has stood up to. It has forced the United States to look for a way out, and did collapse. And it's not only showing its importance in the Gulf region and the Middle East, it has become also a kind of ideals for the countries in the South. So if you look back, it's now the Vietnam of the 1970s and 80s. that which could stood up to a power and which could really have a regional influence, and it can be seen as other countries to standing up to the number one superpower, which is being under threat. How we are going now afterwards? It's actually, though this is a multipolar world now, but it will not remain as a multipolar world as we see it. It will move to a bipolarity. But the bipolarity of the Cold War era will be different this time, because there will be no pretension of ideology. There is no pretension of that we believe in democracy, capitalism, we fight for that, and you believe in communism, authoritarianism, or party dictatorship, you are other party. That will not. It's only based on the power. Who will be giving, whose power, because there is ideologically, they are not much different anymore between these two power blocks. And that's what is the most worrisome for people like us, those who believe in democracy, free speech, for science, for the betterment of the world. These are the real critical issues that it doesn't matter who becomes the superpower, but it matters what are the ideals, are the super ideals in the world. While it is all going, this kind of taking place, we are also witnessing a weaker global governance. The UN system has become almost invisible in diplomacy and security sector. And that's, I find it the most worrisome for countries like in Europe or countries in the rest of the world, that the UN system or the global multipolar associations, multilateral associations are really facing a crisis of survival. And that's something which should worry us as an academic, as a scientist, as the people those who believe in a kind of world, global values and global system. In this context, we also need to see, I'm from the Department of Peace and Conflict Research at Uppsala University. It is the oldest peace and conflict department in the world. It's the largest one as well. We are 100 people work here. But we have a Uppsala conflict data program, which we have been collecting data since the 1980s. We keep figuring out particularly how the conflicts are evolving since 1948. So our data figure finds out now there are more and more conflicts are being fought. There are more than 61 conflicts are being fought in the world. And this is gradually done up, and also more and more people dying because of these conflicts. At the same time, there is not only internal conflicts, because as you know, there have been many of these recent years, we were only more engaged in the conflicts in the global south, where the people, there is a in the Africa, Asia, in the Latin America, and also the Middle East, we were more and also some Balkans, that there most of the conflicts were taking place. But that's those civil war, so-called civil war or internal armed conflict, their number has not decreased, but at the same time, we're also witnessing more and more wars. The countries fighting against, there are 11 different types of wars being fought. And that's much also the wars are not being ending that easily. So more and more wars we are seeing being fought. They have become much more dangerous. And this is where I think we are looking at how the world will be. And also internationalization of this conflict. There are a number of state-based actors and non-state actors are engaged now in these conflicts in other countries. And then another issue which has come up, I think some things which as the scientist community we should be worried about, that the nuclear threat, which we thought that we have gone out of that in this part of the world. These are some of the countries like Indians and Pakistanis, North Koreans, they are engaged in, we don't have that threat. Even if we use one or two against each other, we can address that. But now the nuclear threats have become common in this part of the world. And it is not only the attacks are taking place or using the nuclear weapons, the tactical weapons also, and the way technologically we are trying to advance with the AI and other use being out of our control probably in some time so soon. But then other thing is that we are seeing the idea of a nuclear war or the way even the American president threatening to wipe out a civilization in overnight, that won't take place if you look at the wording and look at the meaning without the use of nuclear weapons. So this is somehow has been a real crisis of science ideas, what is happening. While this is happening, we also need to know that I'm not talking about the international migrants. 120 million people have been forced out of their homes globally now. They're forced displacement, 120 million. And more than half of them have been internally displaced. So these are not people moving out of the country. We're only talking about because migration has become a major issue. We talk about refugees in this part of the world. But out of 120 million, half of them or more than half of them, they stay in the hub. But also 70% of them, those who are moving out of that country, they stay in that region, low-income countries and medium-income countries. The high-income countries receive only 29% of the internationally displaced migrants. But we think that the migration or this global refugee crisis is our problem. But the issue is that it's a global problem and particularly become much more serious where these refugees or the forcibly displaced, not only the refugees, again, whether they're climate refugees, we cannot call climate refugees or climate refugees because refugees only for the conflicts. So given that whoever is being moving out of their countries, as being forcibly displaced, if they move to the developed countries or the high-income countries, they do have much more legal protection, social welfare benefits protection than they are moving into the poor developing countries. And that becomes also an issue, not good for the global regime, which tries to support these kind of people, and the people, those who are also moving out of it. I'm not getting into that's a larger debate, and that we will. But I just want to give out some of the way things are happening. There is also another thing that it's always being talked about. You know, the Muslim countries are the most number one people because they are the people those who are being in the war, and they are the people they are not really receiving refugees. That's again another false propaganda. Because if you look at the statistics, the countries like Turkey, Pakistan, Iran, Bangladesh accepts more refugees than anyone else in the world. So I think it is important to understand that it's the kind of ideas or the kind of things we should talk or listen or hear in the international press, we need to always question. The food insecurity is rising. I think we also, given the situation, there is not only conflict, that or not only migration, it's a very food insecure world. Around 673 million people globally face hunger. We do have, it's such a large number, and 864 million people experiencing severe food insecurity. And that's due to mostly conflict. It's not that there is less food available in the world. There is food there. But because of the conflict, because of climate change, because of economic instability, these food are not reaching these people. So we have a huge food scarcity. While this is happening, we also need to talk about the aid system, the overseas development assistance. That has become much more serious problem. The foreign aid from the OECD countries have declined since 2022. We in Europe have given less money to the foreign aid because we are spending more money now on the military and the Ukraine war. So we can blame everything on the United States politics in the last year because the Trump has stopped, but that has become worse because the United States, though per capita GDP wise, the foreign aid is less, but the overall GDP is the number one. And as you know, the Trump has stopped that kind of foreign aid, or at least reduced quite a lot. But this is a trend which has taken place quite. It has started for a long time. It is rise of right-wing nationalism politics, but I think it has become much serious after the Ukraine war, and it is particularly since last year with Trump coming back to power. Then the climate crisis. I'm sorry, I need to give you all the good news in the beginning, then I will try to come up in the how to address this. There is the extreme weather is increasing. As you all know, there is more wildfires, more storms, more drought. Droughts are intensifying. We all know why this is happening, but of course, there is things are that people are, the policy is not matching with it. There is a water scarcity. I have been doing research on, I'm a UNESCO chair on International Water Cooperation. I have been doing work on the water issues for a long time. Water scarcity is becoming more and more. I live in a country in Sweden, which I never thought that will face the water crisis. But there is a southern part of Sweden is also now facing water scarcity. So, and then if we are talking about the Sweden, you know that what is happening in the Spain, Portugal, in the southern part of Europe. Forget about what is the sub-Saharan Africa or part of Asia. So these are the Middle East. So this is the water and food stress is taking place. Climate has become a threat multiplier. The 2025 was the hottest year on record. The CO2 methane emissions at record high. We all talk about the Paris Agreement that keeping on the 1.5 degree warming, but that is likely to take place in 4 to 5 years. That's 1.5 is not anymore possible. At the same time, wars are contributing more to climate crisis. And we must know that when we are fighting wars, at least for the last 5 years in Europe, and the US was fighting war, but in Europe, the climate is not an issue anymore. Nobody's talking about. None of the election, I just wrote a book, Climate Security. One of the things which is that when I was doing work on the climate security, the problem was, even if the leaders want to do something on climate issue, it's not anymore the first priority of electorates. People don't talk. I'm talking about it never an election issue. A country like in Scandinavia or country in Europe, in the US, in Canada. I was last year in the election, in Canadian election. I mean, that is one of the probably most boring speech you hear about the Canadian Prime Minister's debate. But I was listening for 2 hours, the three Canadian Prime Minister's candidate giving speeches, not a single mention of climate change. So imagine if in the North America and Europe, we don't talk about climate change at the election time, why political leadership will take it as an important part while they come to power, because it doesn't really make any sense for them. That is not politically really good for them, smart for them also to look at the climate crisis. So, and we are at the same time fighting war. And when we are fighting war, the wars contribute much more to climate crisis, while our focus is not to address the climate change. Given this, we are also leading to the resource conflicts. As I was mentioning, the water disputes are increasing. Many of these rivers, in the 1990s, we saw several river signing agreement, international rivers. We saw in Mekong, we saw in the Ganges, we saw in the Jordan River basins with a part of peace agreement. We saw some agreements coming on the Nile River. We saw some agreements coming on the Zambezi. But now we haven't seen for several decades. Now, a couple of decades, there's any major river agreements coming up. We have seen the old agreements are under threat. Nile agreement is under threat. Indus agreement, which has been since 1960, that is under threat. Then the Ganges, river agreement, which is coming to end the end of this year, I don't think it's going to be signed. So these are rather than signing new agreements, the existing agreements are under threat. There is an increasing energy and land competition which is going on. The critical minerals have become much more now the priority of our preservation. We are going on to the Greenland is a new issue, or Arctic is becoming now the new areas. China, US, China trying to block each other on the critical mineral issues. We are seeing a new era of conflict over the critical minerals. That is again in the name of how to address the climate change. But that is not, it is to preserve their superpower status and how to economic power. Then we are seeing the global health crisis. COVID is not very old case. It's just recently we witnessed, it's just few years back. COVID-19 exposed the global inequality among the countries, among the races, among the different religions, among different ethnic groups. We saw, instead of countries coming together when there is a pandemic, we started accusing each other. We started name calling. We started blaming others rather than working together. And when we got into, I'm not getting into a larger other debate of this, how to get out of it. We, instead of helping each other, we try to really make money and to produce, to keep the things for our own country rather than looking at the global health. Though we knew that these things can be addressed globally, not in the individual countries or individual regions. We didn't learn from past. Neither we are learning from the global pandemic we just recently faced. In 2000, UN Security Council had declared HIV/AIDS as a global threat to global security and stability after several years. If you remember, even in the COVID-19, UN Security Council took 111 days more to declare it as a threat to international peace and security, even after WHO declared as a global pandemic, because we are keep on blaming one another. So I think we need to realize that even the global health crisis, which we are all suffering, but we have not really found the way to work together. Then is the fragile pandemic risk. I mean, there is a future pandemic risk coming up. There is Ebola, regular Nipah, but these are the economic costs are higher. But in 2008, IMF had calculated that a flu pandemic could cost $3 trillion and cause a 5% drop in the global GDP. But when the COVID came, after a few years, world witnessed worse. IMF estimated it cost $12.5 trillion. So more than 4 times. And any new crisis, a pandemic will come, it will much more. So we are moving into various reasons into a very different era altogether. There is a rise of far right, the so-called right-wing nationalism. In the beginning, I talked about the decline of democracies for the last 20 years. But now what is happening, the growing nationalism, it's a very different form of nationalism. Nationalism took place in the different times. I mean, nationalism was not a good thing or a bad thing. It was a different ways it has been. But now it is being used in most part of the world to demonize the minorities. In each and every society in a globalized world, people have migrated more and more. People are migrating more and more, or people are those who are living in a kind of society where the previous old, the different race, different religion, different culture. But there is a demonization of minorities taking place. Anti-immigration politics. It's not only rich countries, not only here. It's affecting global south in a big way. And it's a polarization is increasing. So because of the rise of far right, we are also saying our priority is not on climate change. We are fighting more wars. We are looking at the democracy declining. And we are not the aid disbursement or aid support is declining. You name it. These are all interconnected with each other. The thing, it was before this decline of democracy, we thought it's a southern problem. But now we are witnessing more and more in the global north. And that has happened with this. There is a decline in civil liberties, weakening of institutions, less accountability. We have got into an issue that what we had taken for granted in this part of the world the independence, the openness of discussion, debate, idea of doing research, what we can do research on, what we cannot do research on, that has become a subject. Even going to a classroom, giving talk to the students, you need to now be extremely careful that there will be opinions which will come which do not incoherent with the scientific finding, and how to deal with that. So, given all this, which we are seeing a major crisis in multilateralism, this is the time when all these things combine together. As I mentioned, the UN system is under strain. UN has lost its visibility, particularly since Ukraine war, then Gaza, and now Iran war and Lebanon war. Do we find UN anywhere? Unfortunately not. If you look at it, last 2 days, the Pakistani Prime Minister is visiting Saudi Arab, Qatar, and then Turkey. The Pakistani military head chief is visiting Iran. These are the jobs you expect UN Secretary General should do. We are dependent on Pakistan now to bring global peace. This is some things which we need to realize what kind of multilateralism we have, the kind of condition of multilateralism exists in the world now. The power rivalry is blocking actions. UN Security Council has become a place not for the global security, but so to the world who controls the veto power. Since Libyan crisis, Russia and China have been using veto power, and now in the last 5 years, particularly from the Gaza crisis, it's a US using a lot of veto power. And this is somehow the UN Security Council, at least in the last 5 years, has lost its importance, its significance, its role in all sorts of ways. And it just contributes to more declining of trust among countries, for the institutions, towards the institutions, among the people, for the different groups. This is where we have come to in this interconnectedness of crisis. Let me put this, what exactly is happening. We have talked about climate change. It leads to conflict. It leads to migration. Same conflict leads to also climate change. It leads to health collapse. These are all connecting each other. The politics has gone wrong. This is not contributing to the good climate, nor contributing to the peace, nor contributing to how the migration should be addressed well. It's also leading to the weak cooperations among the countries and among the people. So the crisis has become much more complicated, much more challenging to address. And while the addressing mechanism, which is the multilateral institutions, are not exactly in a position to address. Then I will come to what are the role we should play. What is the role of science? I think we need to move out of our area, which we feel comfort in our classrooms or at least in our office and our lab, to tell the world what is happening. We have the facts, we have the evidences, and we need to tell what we think is that our research is. Science can inform policymaking by providing evidence-based data and insights. And the policymaking should not be a whimsical tweet or the what they call the truth social post in the night, and nobody tells what is going wrong. Policymakers make informed decisions on various issues, but those informed decisions, whether they understand it or not, but the policymakers or political leaders want to have that information, need that data to convince and to make those policies. So we need to make it available to the policymakers. What are the kind of scientific findings? What are the kind of evidence-based data we do have for their policymaking? Whether they use it or not, that is a different thing. But if we don't make it a policy available to the policy side, we will not doing our job. And this collaboration between science and policy, it improves its effectiveness of the policy, and the policies are grounded on the basis of scientific understanding and research finding rather than on the whims of political leaders or their political priorities. And I think it is very important that the science community should work with the policymakers and the political leaders how to really make whatever our understanding of the evidences we do have to make them available. And if they are not using it, if they are going outside of it, it is also our job to tell the world, tell the society that this is going against what are the scientific evidences are. We cannot just keep quiet and sleep peacefully, that knowing the truth and not telling the world the truth. Then this is a world where the fake information is rampant. Our job is to provide accurate evidence information and promote critical thinking in the world. We cannot just say that the world has become for the fake news, because we don't want to get into, because we might be challenged, we might be at risk. I can give you hundreds of examples when you, even if you say something which you believe in and years and decades of research behind it, you will be challenged. Media will challenge, somebody will write you email, someone will be, there are different challenges comes up. But if we do have that knowledge, just fearing that, because we are happy in the way things are for ourselves, we will not do it. But that's even if we are reached a certain stage of our career, probably we'll retire, and then, but we are doing a disservice for the future generation or the future science or future research, that not coming up, not really debunking this kind of misinformation which is going on. And then the interdisciplinary solutions. We need to work. Thank you for inviting me to talk to you. I mean, I come from a very different discipline altogether, but we need to have that communication. We need to have the working together. We need to find a way that we can collaborate. I mean, there are many issues. It's not only the controversy. I mean, look at the issues like climate change. Look at the issue of the pandemic. Look at the issues of migration. Look at the issues of even peace, conflict. These are the issues cannot be handled by one discipline. The interdisciplinary solution, because we find much more safe in our area, in our field, because we are an expert in that field. But we need to move beyond that to figure out that we can work together and we can put a common idea, learning from each other, but also substantiating what our finding in our field is also has the backing for other fields. So it will strengthen our research finding. It will strengthen our point of view. So I think this is something we need to look at. I probably running sort of my time, but I will quickly, there is a pathways to peace. How shall we get out of this mess the world has been brought into? This is a cooperation is important at the very different, all sorts of levels. We cannot do it alone. You need to widen the cooperation and you need to deepen the interactions. It has to be between the countries, it is between the societies, it is among the people, it is among the different ethnic groups, it's among the researchers, different researchers, it's a research and society. In all levels, that is a strengthening of cooperation is needed. It is just beyond the task or beyond the capability of any particular state or particular country, particular institution or particular discipline. We need to invest in the resilience, invest in the present as well as in the future. The investment in future needs political will, because it's not politically beneficial for the political leadership. So it is also our job is to provide them the way, give them the ways and give them the support. The political leadership take the decision for the future. peace and sustainability and climate change and taking future protections for the all sorts of threats which we are looking at it, that we need to provide that scientific knowledge, always the support base, how they can do it. Then the inclusive governance, all stakeholders to be part of it. They say, oh, for all the people, of all the people, of by all the people. I say for all the stakeholders, of all stakeholders, by all the stakeholders. If it is not, then I think it is we are not really able to address the challenges which we are getting it. Yes, we need to reimagining peace, because that's no other way. We cannot give up that saying that the world has become a difficult place. We can give that to people like those who are really surviving and thrive on fighting war and demonizing other people, dehumanizing other groups. These are the things we cannot just let it. But not only not the negative peace, no war, but also the positive peace. It includes climate security, it needs health security. It's not only from the freedom from fear, but also freedom from want. We should be freedom for not, from the freedom of having the proper health. Have freedom to have proper health, proper water, proper food, all these things. This is freedom from want is something which is extremely important. Democratic resilience is also extremely important. As I mentioned in the beginning, it doesn't matter who becomes the superpower, but it matters which super idea remains the supreme. Whatever we see, whatever defects or deficits democracy has, is still the best governance model available. So it is always important. The democracy is the best possible governance model at present, and this is how we need to keep it safe and secure for the future, for us and for the future generation. I will end here before opening up for the discussion, but thank you very much for your time and interest listening to this.
So thank you very much for a highly motivating talk. It's truly inspirational, and I fully agree that we have to come out from people are very happy. I have already received a couple of questions, and then we will keep going on. So the first one is from Ahmed Sozan. His question is, on a very normative sense, what actors or who should play a leading role in advocating and shaping the new norms and value of the new world order?
I think what has happened. Thank you for the question. I mean, if you would have asked me these questions, I always think that the states have the priority of doing it. Unfortunately, the state leadership are failing, and the state leadership, the kind of as I was mentioning in the beginning, the speech by the Canadian Prime Minister, I thought that finally probably our leaders in this part of the world have woken up and understood the problem, and then they realized. But I think what happened, we saw that the kind of idea they woke up with the Greenland, they lost it when the attack took place on Iran, or attack took place on the Venezuela. So I think this is the kind of issues we need to see the actors on the most of the states, particularly the states which is a global south possibly now, and some of the European leaders, those who believe in this, they need to follow or at least bring back some kind of international rule-based order. Unless we have a rule-based international order, and this is rule-based international order, we can advocate, we can go for it, the civil society can ask for it, the people can demand for it, but I think it is the state leaders. There is also another problem. It took place. I've been giving this talk. I wrote even for the Euronews an article recently how the leaderships in our part of the world have failed. We are unfortunately looking for a leader who is in this part of the world stand up and say things which is somehow not going just to not being only for small political benefits for them, but looking at the global peace and security and development. We need this leadership for these states. It's at the time when the difficult times have come in the past. We have seen this political leadership coming up. Unfortunately, this political leadership is missing in the West. This is missing in among the global superpower, and also it's missing in the global South. So it's a very difficult time, but I think we can all raise our voices. But the real call and which will make the change when some of the political leadership really make it or work towards maintaining or bringing back a rule-based international order.
So, thank you. I hope it answers Ahmed's question. So I will move to second one from Annie Tombashan. To what extent is the depoliticization of the UN rooted in its original structure and power dynamics? And to what extent has it been shaped in increasing operational focus influenced by the international development aid system? And further he asked, he or she, what pathways can be identified to strengthen its core mission of maintaining international peace and security?
It's a very, very big question. I think the important question is this part, that whether UN is effective now to address the challenges the world is facing. But as I mentioned, yes, like democracy, the UN doesn't need the world needs the UN. That's the way it is. It's not democratic, particularly UN Security Council, which has the real power or up to some extent. It's not democratic. This veto system is always there. That is creating a major problem. One person, one veto is really creating much more danger. And then there are a number of other countries, those who want to become the permanent member with veto power. And that's also, that will never happen in the present context, as I can see. Many people are talking about it, but those kind of changes will not take place at present, or the way it looks like. It's only one thing which I can immediately argue is that, which is probably possible, to democratize the veto system in the UN Security Council. Means one veto power country should not take the world into this kind of blackmailing it. So at least those 5 countries, those who have the veto power, 3 countries have to agree on or not disagree on a particular thing. So at least that can be an immediate solutions of bringing some sort of democracy within the veto system. But it has its challenges that whether it has also, the UN system was created the time is more than 80 years now, and the world has moved in very different direction. The world's power structure has changed quite dramatically. The country with China, which is it didn't have a veto power for several years, and now in a process of becoming the #1 power, then we do see a number of ways how this UN is being treated. The countries, those who are particularly one of the country in the Middle East, treating the UN in a manner which doesn't, and is being supported by other countries, which makes it much more, because it's not only on that issue, but it denigrates the importance of UN in other conflicts as well. The UN peacekeepers are being attacked in various conflicts, or particularly now it's in Lebanon. It's openly, they have been challenged, they have been killed, and the UN has nothing it can do. So these are the things, I think, why it is happening as I see it. Again, the kind of world we have moved in, there is nothing anymore for the political leadership in this part of the world to be ashamed about. They are doing whatever is politically expedient. They are not looking at how the history will judge them. They are not looking at it how what is good for present generation as well as for the future generation. So I think it's very easy to say the democratize UN, but we need to be practical. Can we really democratize the UN the way we want it to be? Or we rather than destroying the UN, at least we try to somehow make it workable to get us out from this kind of situation, serious, challenging situation the world is in. I don't have a very perfect answer for the UN, but I still see UN is much more needed now than ever before.
Thank you. The next one is from Anamika Barwa. So she has think that in a world where geopolitical power is increasingly shaping decision and multilateral institutions are weakening, can we still assume that science remains neutral? And the second part is, or is it increasingly being ignored, selectively used, politically shaped? Do you see this itself as a fundamental challenge to the role of science?
I think this is something which is science, history. These are also motivated by politics. So science also depending on the different demands. It's not new. It has been historically also that to remain completely independent is not the thing which you can all. I mean, we all aspire for, but it doesn't take place all the time. Or it has this all. But it is becoming much more, and it is becoming much more. I am not very much worried about science being politicized, but I am really worried the fake science being politicized, or the science or voodoo sciences being promoted by the different so science. Of course, we see when the war takes place, science is used for how to produce new weapons or the new situations. When the pandemic takes place, political leadership puts that kind of political focus on the science, providing the kind of medicines or whatever the ways we can get out of the pandemic. Those are the things which we and the science also how to address the climate change. So those are the political priorities are there. But my question is, or my problem is when particularly the political leaders in the present political scenarios are using science for the science or using or abusing science for something which just basically meant for their own narrow-minded politics rather than for any kind of larger cause. So that's the challenge. Well, yes, it is not. It has never been science is free of politics, but I think science is non-science is getting now the priority of the politics. That's my problem, or that should be our problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you touched many topics and they're a very interesting one. If anyone has another questions to ask, because I can see there are some comments here, which I also appreciate in the comment section. But if someone want to ask a very concrete question, please go directly and ask the speaker. If someone want to raise hand, if not, so please interrupt me. If not, then I have one question. I think I was taken by your comment that we will return back to bipolarity. And my understanding was that today we are in a multipolar world. So do you think this will be happen in near future, in a decade, or less than a decade, or beyond?
Why I say bipolarity we are moving into, because I think the way transition is taking place to become a superpower, you need 4 different characteristics how to judge it. One is the military power. The second is economic power. Third is the cultural power, and the fourth is allied power. The two countries, those who are really getting ahead already ahead, the US was a military power and economic power ahead. China has gone ahead in the economic power, and China has caught up with the military power. On these two fronts, China and the US, they are, and particularly when you talk about the Russia, which is trying to gain something, Russia is too weak, too engaged in its own internal dynamics and regional dynamics, and it doesn't have the similar type of status to find an open arena to have an independent influence in that area. So I think, and Russia is also becoming increasingly attached to the China or dependent on China, particularly since Ukraine war, despite they have the historical problems and they continue to have some problems, but they have tried to work together. So the other countries, and then, sorry, I just didn't, because diplomatically, I think I mentioned that, or the ally-wise, America had good allies, like countries like in Europe, Canada, and Australia, Japan, you name few. And India, to some extent, was becoming a new ally. But then these countries, as we have seen in the last 7-8 years particularly, but particularly in the last 1 year, these allies are not very comfortable. And the way the NATO is now, probably it will be coming to an end soon, or some way or other. So once US lost its core allies before, they had problems before, but then once the US lost that kind of support from these powerful allies, we see a bigger challenge for US. Whereas the China has been closely aligned with Russia and China has a much more influence in Africa, in Latin America, as well as in Asia, other parts of Southeast Asia to Central Asia, and Middle East as well. And with the Iran, it is moving into this somehow it's moving into a different, completely much more powerful position. So, and the only thing with, I think, the upper hand, US had the cultural power of democracy, free speech, free, openness, the idea of United States, this certainty, there is a rule of law, those things, where the US used to be giving us somehow ideals to look up to. Unfortunately, that is under serious challenge in recent years. So given this, these are the two superpower are competing now. Whereas the other competing ones, like as you mentioned, India, South Africa, Brazil, Indonesia, Nigeria, or Argentina, these are the countries. Unfortunately, they have shown some kind of, sometimes some ideas of bringing some kind of power, or getting some sort of power status in that region, or globally to have some say, but they are falling behind quite a big way. So gradually they are trying to figure out which side they will be on. So in 10, 15 years, we will at least in 10 to 15 years, we will be moving in the very clear-cut bipolar world. That's as much I can say. I'm not going to predict more than after 15 years, then I will not able to just come back and explain it why I said so. So I think 10 to 15 years, I think will be a good possibility that we will move to the bipolar world.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I think if there is no further questions, I like your bottom line very much, that we have the evidence and we have to, Ahmed Shozan, okay, let me finish and then you can come with again, Ahmed Shozan. Yeah, that your bottom line, we have to come out from our comfort zone and confront the policymaker. And for science, as a scientist, as a natural scientist, the positive piece is also very important. So positive piece, as you mentioned, like we work on climate change, water solutions, etc. So Ahmed Shozan, can you please directly ask your question, please?
Yes. Well, Professor Swain, thank you very much for the inspiring speech. I do appreciate your prediction that we are heading towards some sort of bipolarity, though many people believe that it's not really bipolarity, but multipolarity. But I think we are currently at a Antony Gramscian world where, you know, when he says the old world is dead and the new one struggles to be born. This is the time of monsters. So this is almost like a twilight zone in this transition. As you know, the previous system, I call it so-called liberal, so-called global, so-called rules-based, because, you know, it was not purely liberal, it was not purely global, and not rules-based all the time. Now, leaving that aside, but still there were some values like democracy, which you emphasized, free speech and whatnot. Of the West, you talked about the cultural power of the West. My question is, what specific aspects, what specific values and norms should we salvage from the old system, and who should be championing this and shaping these the so-called values and norms of the emerging system? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think, there is somehow we need to look at what is good at the system, what we value the most, and how that system, how those rules are applicable, which were created 100 years back or 80 years, particularly after the Second World War, how that those values are, or how the system is good enough, and at present, particularly the world has changed. Look at Europe, countries, we do have rules and regulations from 17th, 18th century, but our demography has changed quite dramatically. The rules and regulations, the laws were created that time when the society looked different, worked differently, had a different type of religious practices, had different type of ways to govern itself. Things have changed. Not only internally we have changed, the external factors have changed. We moved into the different system, completely globally and regionally. So I think it is very important. We should be reflexive enough, but at the same time, we should be seriously look at it. What are the new situation, and how with new situations, what are the good things to take it from it? But these are supposed to be a way I mentioned. It's a cooperation, coordination, working together, and finding ways that whether we can learn from each other and to move forward in the ideas. And I think this is who will do it. I think I had this discuss. I mean, I started talking about it. It's everybody should talk about. Who should take the lead? It's a political leadership. They have the voice and means to deal with it. Or the problem has become that the political leadership have failed to do its job, where to keep it to the kind of values system we countries are made of. They are trying to change it to the way these new politicals for their own political benefits, and they've forgot what the real regular constitutional values these countries are really. So I think it is very important the political leadership need to be brought back, look at the basics, do the things what they want. But also this present world cannot really believe or cannot govern and cannot work on individual or the world system, world value system. It has to develop itself with the new era, new changing demography, new changing challenges, new changing technology.
Thank you again for your very energetic and motivational talk. With this, I pass the floor to our Professor Rodrigo. Do you want to say some words, Steve? Professor Rodrigo. Sarah? I think they have some problems. Sarah? So with this, I think we are already near to our time, and I want to thank you again for accepting our invitations, and to all the members who have joined. Sarah is here. Okay, so Rodrigo has some problem again with the issue, so I'm thanking on his behalf. And if you want to say some word, I think the floor is yours, Sarah.
No, thank you very much. Thank you all, and thank you for our guest and for his time.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your time. Thanks.
It was a pleasure. Bye. It was very informative and related talks. Okay, bye-bye. Bye, Saurav.